Got dark real fast here at Corporate Woods in Overland Park. We now have a severe thunderstorm warning for Johnson County, Kansas until 7:30. So we could have a chance at quarter-size hail, 55-mile-an-hour winds. That is in play for Johnson County as the lightning flashes right outside of Corporate Woods over 435. So just be aware of that as you get your morning started here on KCMO Talk Radio. Great to be here. Happy Wednesday. Kevin Keatsman will join us in a half hour. Talk about that Rashee Rice deal we were just discussing before the top of the hour. The Boy Scouts. R.I.P. to the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts are no more, at least come February. They are set to rename themselves Scouting America after years of turmoil, and that will take effect in February of 2025 as they get set to celebrate 115 years in existence. It's been a tumultuous few years for the Boy Scouts. Of course, we know they've had and been dogged by hundreds of sexual abuse lawsuits. They didn't allow gays until 10 years ago. And it's been just a rough, I would say, decade. They filed for bankruptcy in 2020. Halting those lawsuits, they emerged last year from Chapter 11 with a plan to pay roughly $2.4 billion to resolve more than 82,000 individual claims of sexual abuse. But the answer here was never to basically act like boys and girls are one and the same. That wasn't the answer. But when all else fails, appease the progressive woke movement. That's the name of the game in America. It's not right, but that's the name of the game. And that's effectively what the Boy Scouts have done. Before I continue here, I was flipping around the dial yesterday, driving around in the afternoon, and seeing what other talk shows in town might have been saying about this. And if you're a radio listener in Kansas City, you'll know exactly what I'm referring to. But there's a show who likes to brand itself as above board. We don't do any politics here. But they talked about the story, and of course, they share these hot political takes while prefacing it by saying, we're not political. It's 2024. Everything is political. I don't perceive this show to be a political show. It's a show about Kansas City and what's going on in the news. I'm not breaking down bills on the House floor in Topeka and Jeff City all day. I'd freaking blow my own brains out by doing that. I'm not breaking down every bill that comes to the floor in Washington, D.C. I don't care. We talk about things that are impacting your life here in Kansas City and things that matter to you that are happening around the nation and around the world. And inherently, every one of these, when you're doing an opinion-based show, does have some politics ingrained in it based on whatever your core beliefs are. So don't do the whole thing like, we're not political, as I give you a political take. What they basically mean is don't call us with your political takes. That's basically what they really mean. They'll get political. They'll give political opinions. They will just insist they don't do politics. Everything is inherently political in some way, shape, or form based on your worldview. And this is another example of that here with the Boy Scouts, announcing yesterday they are changing their name to Scouting America. Now, the Boy Scouts have allowed girls for the last few years. And by the way, the Girl Scouts were not thrilled by that. They opened up to girls years ago, and it was controversial in many respects. The Girl Scouts didn't like it. The Mormon Church didn't like it. And the Mormon Church was a huge pillar behind the modern Boy Scouts. And they split off back in 2018. They pulled 400,000 boys with them, and they created their own scouting organization. So the Boy Scouts continue to dwindle. They continue to hurt themselves. And if you think the answer is to finally change your name away from Boy Scouts, you're just doubling down on stupid. Here's the thing, and as someone who grew up as one of three boys and now has three girls, I've really seen how different they are. I mean, we all knew, I know, this is a bombshell.
Talk about a bombshell.
Boys and girls are different. Whoa! I know it's a surprise to some of you, but they are very different. How you handle them, very different. And I admit, I've learned a lot as a parent. There are certain things that, as someone who grew up in a male-dominated household, you want to parent like you were parented, and it just doesn't work with girls. We're different. Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are different. And by the way, when it comes to boys and men, which is part of the point of becoming a Boy Scout, we've got to figure out how to save men and create men and have a system that encourages boys to become men, not just physically men, like actually be men. And in the absence of this kind of obvious acknowledgement, what happens? Organizations like the Boy Scouts really can no longer justify their own existence because they were built 115 years ago during a time in this country when there was also a perceived manhood crisis. The mission was to teach boys about patriotism and courage and self-reliance and values. And if now your system is all about, we're just scouting America, boys be damned, girls be damned, come on in, it's scouting America, baby. What's the value of you? Why do you matter? Just like churches who continue to dedicate themselves to progressive values, there's really no compelling reason to join or maintain these places. If they're offering values and they're offering morals that you can get by turning on YouTube today, by flipping on your television, by going on social media, by interacting with basically every major American corporation and nonprofit foundation in this country, where you can get those values. And now you're getting more of that same moral formation from Scouting America. And that's all they're providing, and that's all they're offering. And it will do absolutely nothing to build their brand. Because if you don't stand for anything, you stand for nothing. And that is what the Boy Scouts have turned themselves into. A more irrelevant, meaningless organization. And it's amazing when you hear their CEO in the last few days talk about this move that came down yesterday, changing the name of Boy Scouts to Scouting America. His explanation of why they're making this change is truly pathetic. And it's unfortunate because the losers here are the boys who theoretically would be joining an organization like this to, become men, to do boy things, to learn boy values. And instead, that is continuing to be ripped away, and this is just the latest example of that. It won't change how they conduct themselves because already, the Boy Scouts have been accepting girls for years. But this is the final nail in the coffin. And I will play for you what the CEO of the former Boy Scouts, now Scouting America, had to say in terms of explaining why they're making this move. We'll do that next and also get to you at 913-408-7957. If you are involved in Boy Scouts, maybe you're a former Boy Scout, this is it. The Boy Scouts that you know, officially over and done as of February of 2025. We'll play the audio from the CEO coming up next, and then Kevin Keatsman, bottom of the hour, on Rashee Rice's latest legal issues. Here is Roger Crone, CEO of Boy Scouts of America. Big news yesterday that they are changing their name from Boy Scouts to Scouting America, February of next year. It's nothing new. Girls have been allowed to participate in Boy Scouts for the last few years now. But it is kind of the final nail in the coffin for really the whole purpose of Boy Scouts and what Boy Scouts was intended to be. Here's Roger Crone, CEO.
Sends this really strong message to everyone in America that they can come to this program, they can bring their authentic self, they can be who they are, and they will be welcomed here. The argument that I make with the people that say, well, I always like Boy Scouts of America or BSA, why do we have to change? Membership is at historic lows, right? Part of my job is to reduce all the barriers I possibly can for people to accept us as an organization and to join.
All right, so Roger Crone, CEO, says membership is at historic lows, so now we'll continue to basically stand for absolutely nothing, which I guess will help them recruit or something. Remember, I told you they lost 400,000 Boy Scouts alone, courtesy of the Mormon Church, when they started, changing the culture of the organization a few years back. 400,000 boys were taken out of Boy Scouts, courtesy of the Mormon Church. So let's just admit why this has been happening, in part because it's not what it was. It's never what the organization was intended to be. And, unfortunately, this is hurting boys and men because boys and men have really unique emotional, developmental, and spiritual needs, different from girls. As someone who grew up one of three boys, now has three girls, I'm seeing that firsthand. It's very different. But as somebody noted on the text line, and I'll get to your calls here, 913-408-7957, I thought this was a very interesting text. Pete, I grew up in Boy Scouts. I now have three girls who were in Girl Scouts. I was a Girl Scout leader for about 10 years or so. I believe Girl Scouts and the Girl Scout leaders need to step up a bit. The girls just want to do the things some of the boys are doing, and that's all there is to it. The Girl Scout program does not allow some of those things that the boys get to do. And on the other hand, sometimes the Girl Scout leaders don't want to do the things the girls are wanting to do. Well, that's an excellent point. So if there are things, and that's why I think there's 9,000 girls who have become Eagle Scouts. A lot of those things you would not typically do in Girl Scouts. If there are things that Boy Scouts do that Girl Scouts traditionally don't do, then incorporate those physical things into Girl Scouts. And then you still can have Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts separated, and I think there's value in separating them because there are different emotional, spiritual needs that you have in each of those organizations, right? So this would be the best of both worlds. If the Girl Scouts are not moving on with the times and developing with the times, then that's on them. And they've got to do a better job on their front. And then the Boy Scouts also, of course, need to do a better job. But that ship has long sailed, unfortunately. 913-408-7957 as we roll through the morning. Let's start off with Jim. He's in Liberty. Jim, good morning. What's happening, buddy?
Hey, good morning. Good to be with you. I just want to say I'm a little bit disappointed. They continue to change the program that we signed up for. So, you sign into a program and you say, this is a great program. These are the values I believe in and things. And then everything just keeps changing in front of you. So that's really where I'm at with it right now. I'm an Eagle Scout from the 1980s. I have two sons that are Eagle Scouts. One of them just recently got awarded the Eagle Scout rank. And so we're kind of all in to a certain degree, but not when they keep changing things.
Is your younger one going to finish up?
Yeah, he is Eagle Scout.
Okay.
We're going to try to stick with it for 2 or 3 more years while he's in high school, and then we'll probably be done.
But you've seen the program change from the 80s when you did it.
Oh, well, when I was in, there wasn't even any female leaders. They started that sometime right after I finished in the late 80s or early 90s, which it was because it was needed. There was not enough men stepping up, and I agree with that. There's no problem. Then I think it was 2019 when they started letting girls into Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
And there's
a
whole set of rules that go around all that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole set of rules that everybody's been bending the whole time, and so that's an issue too. So technically, girls are not supposed to be in the same troop at the Boy Scout level. They're not supposed to be in the same troop. But you can have linked troops.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these people are blurring all the rules. So they're not really kept separate. Well, if you have high school boys or even girls, or even maybe middle school nowadays, that they're thinking about sex and things like that. A lot of them are doing it. It's not a good scenario to take boys and girls camping that are of that age, to be honest with you.
That's a terrible idea. Thank you very much there, Jim. I appreciate the insight and the input, and good luck to the boys here wrapping that up. Chris in Kansas City, the last minute's yours, buddy. What's happening?
Hey, Pete. I was a Eagle Scout back in the 90s, and I just think I have 2 kids. And a long time ago, 5 years ago, when my son expressed interest, I said absolutely not, based on, the garbage that we have now. And I'm also an executive. I run a company, and for the CEO to say, hey, we've lost a ton of membership, So let's double down on the reason why we're losing membership. I mean, I don't know if this guy's corrupt, if he's being paid, whatever it is, but it is there's no more scouting in the U.S. There isn't. It's now just one, corrupt organization, and I think that any Eagle Scout that is true to what the Boy Scouts of America was is more than disappointed on what's happening. And unfortunately, no one can stop it, because this is yet another. It's another organization that's being infiltrated by the Marxist left, and that's it.
Chris, thank you. It's a excellent point, by the way, on let's double down on stupid. Let's double down on what is already destroying us. And that's basically what you heard from Roger Crone, the CEO there. Absolutely spot on.